I'm eating a lot of protein and vegetables and walking. That's what I'm doing. We're approaching the 200-pound mark.
Where he was once recognized for his hardships and a history replete with heavy fights, Jelly Roll is today a man of complete change. His looks, his presence, and how he holds himself have left fans from all over the world speechless. The transformation is not only external, it has rewritten the history of his entire life. Today, each step he makes exudes strength forged in adversity. Come along with us and discover the incredible comeback story of Jelly Roll nobody saw coming. Stepping stones to success. Jelly Roll was born Jason Bradley DeFord in Nashville, Tennessee, on December 4, 1984. He lived in a neighborhood on the city's southeast side called Antioch, where life was frequently tough but riddled with lessons that made him the person he would become later in life. His dad, Horace Buddy DeFord, worked diligently as a wholesale meat business, but he also had a side business as a bookie, which earned him extra cash. Jelly Roll had 3 older half-siblings, 2 brothers, Roger and Scott, and a sister, Shelby, who were already a part of his life as he found his own way. But his mother, whose name was never released to the public, had her own demons to conquer. She had a substance abuse problem and mental illness issues, and those issues frequently carried over into the house. In spite of her difficulties, she gave her son a nickname that he would have for the rest of his life. Because he was a chubby little boy, she began calling him Jelly Roll, a handle that would one day become his stage name. Years on, as he made his way into music, he confessed that he liked being addressed as simply Jelly, as if he was simplifying things to something even more intimate. Despite all the hardships she endured, his mother was the initial spark that ignited his passion for music. She would play artists such as George Strait and Garth Brooks, and he would sit with her, becoming absorbed in the emotion of songs. From her, he learned not just a love of country music, but also how to tell stories in a form that could touch people. This influence provided him with the impetus to write his own music. When he was 9 or 10 years old, Jelly Roll had already composed his first rap track. He wished to perform music that would move people the way his mom's favorite songs made her feel. As he matured, he delved deeper into music. By the 8th grade, he was making mixtapes and distributing them in parking lots outside high schools, eager to share his sound with the world. Another new direction in life was added when his parents broke up when he was just 13. That breakup affected him hard, and suddenly he felt compelled to take it upon himself for his mother. With his dad away from home, he felt it was his job to come up with a means to make money, so he started selling illegal drugs. He didn't merely sell. He also tossed mixtapes of his rap tracks into their bags, distributing his music in locations where people least anticipated. Even during that difficult period, Jelly Roll maintained a tight relationship with his dad. Buddy instilled him with lessons that served him long after. He taught him the value of being against racism and standing up like a man. Those were lessons that served as reference points for Jelly Roll the rest of his life. When Buddy died of cancer during March 2019, the pain was sharp, but the lessons he had imparted stayed with his son. Jelly Roll's journey started with struggle, but each bit of it, from his mother's hardship to his father's impact, from his initial rap at age 10 to distributing mixtapes in parking lots, formed the foundation for the artist that he would grow up to be. He bore the responsibility early on, and music was the one constant thing that kept pulling him along the way. But his rise to fame was never smooth. Finding redemption, Jelly Roll started getting into trouble with the law at a time when he was still a teenager. Just 14 at the time, he was arrested for the first time. That first time would be the start of a lengthy succession of arrests that would trail him throughout his younger years and even in his early 20s. Through the years, he would be incarcerated about 40 times for various crimes, coming and going from prisons as his habits continued to draw him further into the system. Every arrest drove him closer to drifting away from a regular course and landing him with consequences that fell hard on his future. One of the worst times in his youth was the time he was arrested when he was just 16. At such a young age, he was prosecuted for aggravated robbery, an offense punishable by very serious consequences under the laws of Tennessee. Even though he was a boy, the court ruled to prosecute him as an adult. He was not yet done growing physically, but he was now lumped together with fully grown men who had committed brutal offenses. The charge carried the potential of 20 years in prison, but after the process ran its course, he actually served slightly more than a year in prison and was later given probation for more than 7 years. The punishment stayed with him far beyond the time he left jail, because Tennessee laws regarding violent crimes did not allow any room for discretion. The offense remained on his record forever, and because of it, he lost privileges that many take for granted. He was not able to vote, could not serve as a volunteer in most organizations, and could not lawfully possess a firearm. At about the same time, Jelly Roll was struggling with his own demons away from the courtroom. He began selling illegal drugs and had also begun using them. These drugs became a part of his lifestyle, making it even more difficult to break the cycle of chaos. His use of hard drugs only dragged him deeper into dangerous behavior, but that experience later taught him about addiction, and he would turn that knowledge around to help others. As he matured and began to reform, he began to visit rehab centers, where he met individuals who were attempting to overcome their own addictions. He preached to them about turning around and reminded them that even the man who had endured decades of error could still turn their life around. His life came to an unplanned juncture when he was 23. During the year, he was again in prison, this time for selling on hard drugs. On May 22, 2008, when he was sitting in prison, he heard life-altering information from a correctional officer. He had recently become a father. The arrival of his daughter, Bailey, became the turning point that compelled him to halt and reflect on the path he had been taking. That changed something within him. He started to feel the burden of responsibility and understood that he could no longer continue the same way. Soon, he was reassigned to the prison's education unit. There, he seized the opportunity to work on himself by getting his GED. For a man who had spent years going in and out of trouble, that was a fresh start. When he left prison in 2009, he had not only freedom, but also a feeling that he had to build a better life. Years later, his tale again put him in the news, but this time differently. The Tennessee Board of Parole considered his case in a lengthy hearing in Nashville. Considering his past, his development, and his contribution, they voted to approve a pardon for him. The vote was then forwarded to the governor, who would make the final determination. To Jelly Roll, that day meant more than a day of legal advancement. It was like vindication of his journey to reform. He had ever lived by the fact that prison made him change his life and even welcomed him into music. Music became the medium by which he vented his struggle and connected with others trapped in the same vicious cycle. As time went on, he began to speak with prisoners and youths in detention, encouraging them to get better from their troubles through therapy, music, and second chances. There was a functional basis for why the pardon was significant as well. His record made it extremely difficult for him to travel abroad. Traveling beyond the United States meant having to undergo endless paperwork and legal procedures, sometimes requiring whole teams of attorneys just to get into countries. A pardon would be a doorway for him, facilitating easier transmission of his message and his music throughout the globe. Jelly Roll's experience illustrated how one could get into serious trouble and yet still be able to bring life back in line. He is now a man who uses his experiences to lead people away from the same pitfalls. He bore the burden of the past, but he also bore a will to show that change was possible. Each step he took demonstrated that he was resolute to travel a different path, one forged by music, religion, and redemption. But that was not the only battle he was contending with. The journey of 1,000 miles. Jelly Roll's life has never been without battles, and one of the most immediate struggles he has had to contend with has been his own body. For years, he has had to deal with addiction, the burden of childhood trauma, and literally the burden of his size. At its peak, the weight on the scale went up to 540 pounds, and it defined how he got around. It defined how he played, how he flew, and even the way he viewed himself. To him, food was more than just food. It was comfort, it was flight, and it was another kind of struggle, one that had trailed him since he was a little boy. By 2015, he weighed well over 500 pounds. Physicians had even informed him that the scale they usually employed was inadequate to weigh his size, and he was once told to visit a truck stop or a meatpacking plant to seek out a scale heavy enough to support him. That day had a sting of humiliation he could not erase. He had always been referred to as Jelly Roll, which was a childhood name given to him by his mother, but the older he got, the less the name was humorous. It became a constant reminder of how long he had been carrying it. Even though, through his career in music, his weight never prevented him from taking the stage. He would remind himself again and again that he could still succeed in the business, even if others told him that he was too heavy or that his voice did not fit into the music industry. He disproved them, but in his heart, he did not feel good about it. He confessed that for a long time he managed to mask the pain. He attempted to obtain value through females, believing that if he could go out with good-looking dates, perhaps folks would not see him simply as the big guy. But deep down, the awkwardness never dissipated, not until the breakthrough occurred in 2016. He just knew he needed to begin losing weight. He wanted to reclaim control over the thing that had tormented him since he was a child. He adapted his lifestyle, and he lost 200 pounds. For some time, the improvement buoyed him. He felt stronger, more able, and more alive. But the path was not linear. The life of touring, perpetual travel, late nights, and the constant temptations of food and beverage drew him back. He regained 60 pounds, and the cycle of disappointment. Nevertheless, he never quit. He reminded himself that whenever he fell, he had to get up and struggle again. While forcing his way forward, he employed his platform to own up. In 2018, he opened up online about his weight and confessed that he was unhappy with how things were. He wrote down what he wanted to do with his life. These were things many people took for granted, yet to him, they were inaccessible due to his weight. He desired to live differently, to participate in those things, and to re-engage with food. The next few years were a roller coaster. He exercised, he meditated, and he attempted to eat healthier. In February 2003, he informed his public that he was once again completely dedicated to losing weight, creating music, and ensuring that he presented the most superior aspect of himself on stage. It was not about appearing better. It was about being better, being healthy enough to live longer, perform stronger, and inspire individuals who were struggling with demons of their own.